Hey everyone, Gary Simon of Coursetro. So sticking with the theme of Vue and the last month or two, we're gonna keep on going, and chances are if you already have a basic understanding of Vue, and if you don't, you can check out the very free course that's at coursetro.com, then you're going to find yourself in a situation where you need to learn Vuex. Sorry, my computer's going off. And so Vuex is a state management system. So what does state management mean? Well, it basically means the government comes by and they take your money and they spend it on a bunch of stuff that, no, I'm just kidding. I hate the government though. Basically, state management is simply just a way of saying your application's data. All right, so chances are if you have a small app or an app that's based on like a static website just for informational purposes, you're not going to have to worry about using Vuex. But if you have a medium to large size application that has a lot of data with components that are trying to access and change it and all that stuff, you're going to want to use Vuex, and you'll see why. So over here, this is the very simple app that we have that we're going to create from scratch, and this is just the end result of it. So it's just, it's kind of like almost like a to-do list app or something like that, but we just have different links that you can add. Okay, so all this stuff, even this my custom title, is coming from a property that's stored in the state section of Vuex. All right, so that's the very first thing we'll do. It's very easy. And then down here, this array is also coming from Vuex. We can also use this very simple input field, this form, to add another link. I'm just going to hit that and hit enter. We can see it gets added there. Now this right here is a different component, and this is one of the use cases or one of the reasons why you'd use something like Vuex, so that you can easily access that same information from multiple components. And you can see how it automatically updates the view. We can even over here where it says remove all links, I'm using what's called a Vuex action for this one, and that allows for asynchronous functionality. So what I did is, instead of just removing all the links instantly, I wanted to try to replicate an action or an operation that would take some time. Like for instance, if you're working with fetching API data, it may take some time. So I used a set timeout of 1.5 seconds in order for that to show. And then we did that with the promise. You can also use async and await. And then a message will display once these are removed, or this mutation has been performed. All right, so very simple as you could see, but you're gonna learn a lot. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. Oh, but real quick, before we begin, make sure you check out my site, coursetro.com, where you're gonna find a bunch of courses on modern design and development. A lot are free, and the others you can access for the cost of buying me like a 6-pack each month. That's it. Now also, it probably wouldn't hurt to subscribe here on YouTube, and be sure to make sure the notifications are turned on. All right, let's get back to it. And the very first thing we want to do, you want to make sure that you have your Vue CLI, or the command line interface, installed. All right, so to check that, Vue-v. You also want to make sure you have a version that's greater than 3 or equal to or greater than 3.0 or greater than 2.9 basically, because otherwise you won't be able to use the Vue create command. They only have like the init command. So once you have that installed, and you can just Google that if you don't have that installed, we'll go ahead and run Vue create, and I'm just going to call this Vue state, or you could call it Vue, I'd call it whatever you want. All right, we'll hit enter, and we're going to manually select the features, and that will give us access to the router. And we'll just add this just in case you wanted to add it. I don't really think I really use it in this project. And then also Vuex. And if you want CSS pre-processing, go ahead and do that. So hit enter. We'll just have in dedicated config files. It's not really a big deal. Don't want to save it as a preset. Hit enter. And now we're just going to wait. All right, great. So now once it's finished, we're going to cd Vue state, and I'll yarn serve once we're in it. All right, and then while that's working, let's go ahead, and I want to also show you before we begin developing. This is something that's very useful for Vue development, and that is Vue.js DevTools. It's an extension that you can add to Chrome, and you can see it right there, Vue DevTools. Go ahead and install that, and once you have that installed, let's go up. I'm going to bring up a browser window here. All right, so this would be, let's see, yeah, local. I'm just going to refresh this. This is, oh, I believe I have it running on 8.0. Yeah, it's 8.0. There we go. And you can see now it lit up because it's a Vue project. And if we hit Control-Shift-I, and bring this out here, we'll see we have a Vue tab. And we click on this section, and this is for Vuex. And this shows us base state, and it's going to show us, you know, as it happens, our different getters and the properties that we have stored in the state. So we'll be referring to this for a while, just so you can understand, you know, the usefulness of this tool for debugging and such like that. So, all right, let's go ahead and we're going to open up our code editor. I'm using Commander here. So it's a free console emulator. I'm just going to go here. Nope. What am I doing? All right, and code period, and that's for Visual Studio Code. It'll just launch that up. All right, so let's take a look at our source folder, and we have store.js. Now this file is created when we chose to include Vuex in the project. All right, so it's also integrated here. If we go to main.js, we'll see that we have import store, and then it's added here as an option in Vue. Okay, so let's talk about defining a state property, which is probably one of the basic things that we can do. And so what we can do is let's make a new property called title. And we'll say my custom title. All right, dead simple stuff. Let's save that, and let's go to our components, hello world.vue. Now this is where all that text comes from. So let's go ahead and I'm going to gut everything actually within this div class hello. And I'm going to get, let's see here, Control B to get rid of the sidebar. We're going to go ahead and put a div class equals left. I'm just doing some initial templating here. And then also div class equals right. And then inside of here, how would we access that property that we now defined in the Vuex state sections? So, well, we'll just do it normally as we would any other property through interpolation. That's not the only thing we can do though. I mean, we're not done yet. It won't work at this point if we were to save it. The next section will require us to go down to our script section, and we're going to import map state, which is a helper for us to access the state properties or the data in there from Vuex. All right, and then we can get rid of props here. We don't need this message. We'll put in computed, and inside of here, for now, I'm going to put map state, and I'm going to get rid of that real quick. Put in an array. All right, so inside of here, we'll just put in the name of the property that we defined, which is title. All right, so we have the name, the interpolation property being title, and title will grab the value from Vuex with the help of map state. All right, so if we go ahead and save this and go back to our console, there we go. We have my custom title. And we can also see with the help of this Vue Dev plugin, we have a base state, and we have under state our title property. Awesome. Okay, so now let's also, for instance, we can also pass in an object instead of an array here. And this lets us do a couple things, one of which being, let me go ahead and gut all of that and put in an object instead. And let's say we didn't want to use the same name. We want to use a different alias instead of title. We can put, for instance, custom and then title. So then we can put custom up here, save it, and we'll see that it works just the same. All right. Now, also, chances are you're going to have more than just map state as a computed property in this section. You may have multiple things here. So in this case, you need to use what's called an object spread operator. It sounds complex if you've never heard of it, but you do this basically by adding 3 periods before the map state and using it as you normally would. So let's go ahead and make the following adjustments. So this is what I was initially doing when I started this section. I was opening up in an object here, and then we say map state, and we'll go back to what we were using as an array before, title, and then now we can have, you know, other stuff here, other properties or whatever. So now we can save this. It's going to work just the same. Awesome. All right, so now let's go back and, you know, I think when it comes to learning this stuff, muscle memory, it's all about that. So let's this time, instead of just creating a simple, you know, variable type of string variable or property, let's go back to our store.js file and let's create an array. All right, so we'll call this one links. So we open it up in array brackets and we'll put some initial data first here. So I'm going to put in coursetro.com and then maybe youtube.com. All right. And in the same way, we can gain access to it. So let's go up into our template here. So we'll say UL for unordered list. We'll put in li v4 directive to iterate through a list for a link index and in links, as that's the name, and then vbind key equals index. We'll be using this later to help delete. All right, and then inside of here, interpolation link. All right, so then one final adjustment, map state, we're going to add another one, or the other one, which we named links here in store.js. So we'll save this, go back real quick. There we go, a very ugly, ugly list. All right, so now let's talk about view getters. So to this point, we've been using map state, the map state helper, to directly access the data contained in the state. Now this is fine when no computations are needed or need to be made on the data itself, but when you're dealing with multiple components, you may find yourself duplicating code unnecessarily when transformations need to be made on the data. So this is where getters come in handy. So let's go back to our store.js, and let's say, for instance, that we want to count the number of links in our array. We don't just want to return it, because that's what we would simply use our map state for if we just wanted to return the data as it is. We want to count and perform, obviously, some type of operation or a function on it to get the number of links here, which we know is 3 at this point. So this is where we would use a getter. And by default, they don't have getters added here, so we can just add it right here. Just in this section, put a comma down there. And the way we would do this, we define the name of it first. So the name of the getter will be count links. All right, and then we'll say state. So we're passing in access to the state by calling state there. And then we're going to return state dot, and then we'll see we have up here links and title. There's the 2 properties or the pieces of data that we have available up there. So state, we want links, and then we just run a normal JavaScript length, which will get the number of items here. So now let's just go ahead and go back here. And because I wanted to illustrate, the fact that the usefulness of this with multiple components, we could just do all this next stuff in the same component just to count to show a display here, but I'd rather do it in a different component. So let's go ahead real quick and I'm going to duplicate this file, but before we do that, I'm going to go back here in div class write, and we're going to add an import for another component that we're going to call stats. or maybe stats about the list or whatever you want to call it. And up here, we're going to import. This file doesn't yet exist. We'll create it momentarily. It'll be called stats.view. All right, and then also we have to add components down here, property, where we pass in stats, which is the component. All right, and then next, we'll save this and we'll open up, and I'm just going to Control-C, Control-V, right-click, rename, call this stats.view. So now with stats.view selected, we'll make some adjustments here. This is actually obviously what's going to go on the right-hand side of our app. So we're going to gut everything between the div tags of div class hello. I'll change this to stats. And then in here, we're going to put an H1 of, let's see, a different component, just to let us know that's a different component. And then also a paragraph. There are currently interpolation, count, links. All right, simple enough. Now in the script section, we don't need to import that, obviously. We want to import a new one called map getters. So obviously, you'll notice a trend where you have map. You have a map or a helper for each of the sections in store.js, essentially. So map getters is for getters. And then down here, we're going to name this stats. And we don't need component section. And for computed, instead of map state, we'll use map getters. And then in here, it works the same way. The name of the getter that we created in store.js. So it's called count links. All right, so now if we go ahead and save this with any luck, it'll show us. All right, so now we have a couple different things happening. We have a list up here, and then we have our new component, a different component where it says there are currently 3 links. And you can see it has a new section down here called getters with count links being currently 3. Awesome. All right, so now at this point, this is so ugly. If you're new to my channel, almost every tutorial I write, there's a written version where it also has code. It's the very first link in this in the description of the YouTube here. Click on that, and you're going to see this massive, long 3,000-word tutorial that I'm currently following as the basis of this video. And I'm telling you this because there's a section where it has a lot of CSS. So I just want to format this stuff to make it a little bit better. I'm a designer, I can't help it. And it's right here in this section of the tutorial. Let's take a break and make this look better. And so what I'm going to do is just real quickly copy and paste a few of these things so that I just lost my point. There we go. I'm going to copy. This is going to be in hello world.view in the style section. So I'm just going to copy the whole style section right here. So let's go back here real quickly. Hello world, go to style, overwrite that stuff. We're going to save that. We're also going to copy real quick. Sorry, I'm trying to find, I'm losing my place here. In app.view, there's a couple changes that we need to make for source app.view. So I'm just going to copy the template all the way to the end of the style section. So let's Control B, and we'll go to app.view. So copy that. I just gutted all the other stuff. I just had the router here and got rid of some of the rule sets. We kept this font family here. We'll save that. And then coming down here for source views home.view, I'm just going to copy all this. I'm not really changing much here. It's just getting rid of some of the the logo and stuff. Like in home.view, it had the logo. We don't want that. Yep, and that's good. I'll save that. And we'll see if there's anything else that I want to make. Yeah, so it's almost good there. All right, awesome. Okay, so everything looks a lot better. I could stop panicking just remember how crappy it looked. So now let's go ahead and continue on learning about Vuex. So the next section is going to be about mutations. So to this point, we've only added and displayed data from the state. So what happens when we want to change the state data? So that's where mutations come into play. So let's go back to our store.js file. I'm going to get rid of just a couple of these. All right, and let's say that we want to add a new link with a form input field, which doesn't yet exist in our HTML, but we'll worry about that after this section. So we can see we have our mutations section down here. So let's go ahead and add a new mutation that will allow us to add a link. So it's a standard practice to have these all capitalized. So add link for the name. That's how we'll reference it. And we're going to pass in the state for it, which gives us access to the state properties and methods. We'll do a link as well. And this is basically a payload where you can optionally send in data in order for it to add. It's optional, but obviously being that we want to add a new link, then this means by extension that we need to pass in that data. So our function here. So we're going to say state links and then push, and this is just regular JavaScript to push data to a new array. So a link is coming from here. That's going to be the user submitted content, and then we just add it in that way. All right, so now let's go ahead and save, and we're going to go back to our hello world.view file, and up here we're going to add a form just between the h1 and the unordered list. So it's going to be form at submit prevent equals add link. So that'll be a custom method to add a link when this form is submitted when we hit enter. And then we're going to put input. We'll give it a class of link input, and also type is text. Placeholder is add a link, and then vModel directive, sorry about that, equals new link, and we'll define that momentarily. All right, so then coming down here in the script section, we're going to add a data property because we now have our vModel bound to a new property. So we're going to put in data, and in here we're going to return new link. By default, it will be empty. All right. Okay, so let's put in a comma here, and now what we want to do is add a new section, methods. So let me just get rid of this. We're going to put a comma here at the end of computed and add methods. All right, so by the way, we need to add, before I forget, map mutations. And there we go with that similar pattern. You know, we just worked with mutations. Now we're going to add map mutations in order to get access as a helper. So now inside of methods, we're going to use the 3 periods, map mutations, and we're going to pass in through an array the name of the mutation, add link. Then, comma, this is what gets called, the method that we referred to in the form, add link. And we'll say this dot add link. And this is basically, this map mutations transforms add link so that we can reference it by this dot add link, and then simply pass in, because we do have one argument there, this dot new link, which is going to be the value of that input, or the submitted input form element. So now, then we can reset it to empty when somebody hits enter. All right, so also, because we did add a new input, I want to add a quick rule set, and this code is also available on the written version. Just a quick rule set here for the input button to style it better. And now let's give it a try. All right, so here's our new input field. If I hit anything here and then hit enter, there we go. And you can see how this Vue DevTools, it recorded this new add link mutation that was committed, and it provides us with all the information over here. Awesome Awesome stuff. Boy, why can't I? It's like not letting me select this. All right, there we go. So let's add a couple more mutations, except this time we're going to use actions to perform the mutations. So calling mutations directly in the component is for synchronous events. Now, should you need asynchronous functionality, you can use actions. And this time we're going to use an action to call upon a mutation that will remove a link. And it's going to seem a little bit redundant, but you'll get the hang of it. So we're going to first add a new mutation. And so we're going to name this remove link, state link. It looks very similar to the one above. And then state links dot splice. We'll pass in the link, which is the index really, and 1. And that'll remove the given link when somebody clicks on a remove button. Now for actions, we're going to name it remove link here. Now this time we pass in a context, and this simply provides you with the same methods and properties on the store instance, and also the payload, or in this it's the same situation happening here for the link. This is the data that gets transferred when somebody clicks the button. So then right here we call upon context commit, and this is how we call upon a mutation, remove link. We simply put in the name, and then we pass the data of link along with it. All right, so we're going to modify this in a little bit just to introduce a promise in here, which you can also use async and await, but we're going to use a promise. All right, so now let's go back to hello world. Go back up top, and we need a button to allow people to remove something. So button v on, we'll say click equals, we'll call a method called remove links. You don't want to name it remove link because we already have something stored there, and you'll get an error that shows up. So you want it to be a unique name. So index and class equals rm for remove. We'll style it in a second, and then the button. All right, so very simple button here. Someone clicks it, it calls remove links method, and it passes in the index. All right, so now let's go ahead and once again add in map actions, which is a helper. Okay, so now we're going to, under methods and under map mutations, add map actions. We're going to put in remove link, and that's the name of the action. And then also remove links property or method there. Function, we pass in the link, and then this dot remove links link. And this remove links comes from this part right here for map actions. And actually this shouldn't be plural. There we go. All right, so let's also real quickly, I'm just going to copy a rule set again, put it at the bottom for the RM class, and save that, and let's give it a go. So this will allow us to remove one of these results. So if I click remove from Corsetro, there we go. We could see that it has been called over here, this mutation of remove link. All right. Awesome. So we can also see that it still works how it needs to. All right. So this isn't really that exciting. So let's try actually demonstrating the value of using actions to perform these async operations. So let's go back to our store.js, and we're going to create another mutation and one more action. So the other mutation here is going to be called remove all. So we'll just have a button where one can remove all of them. We pass in the state. We don't need to pass in any type of data, so we can just put that. And then we're going to have state.links equals, that's it. We're just going to empty it out. All right, cool. So now in actions, let's put a comma here. We're going to name one called, an action called remove all. And then we're going to put in commit. And then we're going to return a new promise. And if you're unfamiliar about promises, I would definitely suggest doing a quick search on a tutorial so you can learn about them. You'll see kind of how it works here in the context of this simple app. And we're going to just simulate something like an action that could take time, set timeout. And inside of here, we're going to commit. And again, this context, how this is passed in here, is different than how we did it up here. In this case right here, we can, it's less verbose. We can use less code in order to achieve the same thing. But this is basically what we're doing here is the same thing right here. We're simply calling a mutation. So commit, and we'll say which one, the one that says remove all, and then resolve. And then the length of time, we'll say 1500 milliseconds or 1.5 seconds. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. And we're going to do this time in the stats.view file. So we'll add a button here up in the top. And again, I'm just putting in this one and just kind of going back and forth just to show how easy it is to use Vuex and how useful it is to have everything in that one section or that one data store right there. So let's remove all links for the text here. All right, so remove all links, we have to create that, but we also have to import two other things. So map mutations and map actions. All right, so data here. We're going to return, I forgot to put this in the template, a property called message. We're going to put it right here. And so we're only going to show the message after it is finished removing all of those links through the set timeout. And that's where the promise helps big time. So what we'll do now is under methods, we need to add it. We're going to say, and this is going to be very similar to the previous or to the other file, map mutations. We only have one, so I'm just going to keep it on one line, remove all. Also, we have map actions. Which one do we want to access? It was called remove all. And then we also need to reference the remove all links method. And then we're going to say this dot, and then the name of the action, which we can reference because we used the map actions helper. So this dot remove all. Then execute the code in here once it is finished. So this would be this dot message equals they have been removed, and there's an error somewhere right here. There we go. All right, they have been removed, and we should be good to go. One final thing before we give it a test, another style for our button. Very simple stuff right there. And let's give it a try. All right, so just add one. Everything there still works. Console's looking good. No errors or anything. And let's try this. So we're going to click it. Nothing's going to happen for 1.5 seconds, and then we'll get the message, and these will disappear. Awesome. Awesome, awesome stuff. So hopefully you were able to learn quite a bit throughout that tutorial. I know it was a little bit more lengthy. And of course, in the context of a real, medium to large size Vue application, your Vuex, when it comes to your state and your mutations, it'll get really large and obviously probably more complex than what we dealt with. But hopefully that will give you a primer, a basic rundown, so you can then go on to create bigger and better things. All right, make sure you check out coursesetcher.com, and as always, subscribe here. This is my full-time job basically, so a lot more content to come, and I'll see you guys later.